Poor folks will always stay poor, right? Would you even deposit a penny in my bank, huh?
At the high school reunion, I ran into the fated enemy, a daughter of a bank president, Sarah Johnson. She still looked down on me, spouting whatever she wanted. I was utterly astounded by her attitude. Still trying to mock me, I got so angry that I pulled out my phone and said, "President Johnson, I'm canceling a deposit of $100 million. And more shocking truths awaited her. I am Emily Thompson, 30 years old. While working as a lowly office worker, I'm also living alone. Even though I'm an office worker, my company pays me so poorly that paying rent is a stretch. Despite the struggle, I prefer not to rely on my parents, dedicating my days off to side jobs and being extremely frugal when times are tough. My lifestyle might seem a bit constrained to others, but I have a loving partner and am satisfied with my life." Then one day, an invitation to the high school reunion arrived at my home. Seeing the invitation, I made a sour face. Because high school wasn't a place of fond memories for me. When I was in high school, I was a bit on the chubby side compared to others. I thought my face was plain, and more than anything, I hated my acne-prone sensitive skin. During high school, my skin condition was at its worst, and looking in the mirror every day brought me down. The one who took notice of me was Sarah Johnson, the most prominent girl in school. Sarah always called me dirty and even threw water over my head in the bathroom, claiming she was washing my face for me. I was hesitant to go to a reunion filled with such memories. But now I've lost a lot of weight compared to my high school days, and my skin has become smooth and clear, without a single blemish. Honestly, I think people who knew me back then wouldn't recognize me now. That's why I thought maybe it wouldn't hurt to go. But this thoughtless action would make me feel miserable like in the old days. On the day of the reunion, I dressed up in a new dress and went to the venue. While parking my car, feeling excited, I saw Rachel, an old good friend from school. I hadn't been in touch with her since graduating, so I felt nostalgic and immediately rushed to her after parking. "Long time no see, Rachel. Remember me? I'm Emily."
"What? Emily? Is that really you? You've become so beautiful."
Hearing that from Rachel made me very happy. I could confidently say I had transformed significantly from my past self. Honestly, until Rachel said that, I wasn't sure if I had really changed. I was afraid of meeting high school friends who might say, "What, really? You haven't changed at all." But that fear vanished. Until she showed up.
"Hey, you're in the way."
As we were walking by, none other than Sarah, who used to bully and torment me in the past, popped her head out of the car and called out to us. I recognized her immediately with her upturned eyes and loose, curly chestnut hair, just like before. "Oh, sorry, Sarah." I found myself apologizing instinctively, out of old habit. She looked surprised at first, but then she exclaimed, "Huh?
Could that voice be Emily?"
Yes, it's me. I guess I've changed too much to be recognized," I said to Sarah with a sheepish smile. Then, Sarah began to smile with the same malicious delight as before.
"Really? You've changed so much. Where did you dump that sloppy figure and nasty skin? Did you get plastic surgery or something?"
Her words made me choke, but I gathered my courage to respond. "No way, I don't have money for plastic surgery. I've worked hard to lose weight and even went to a dermatologist to improve my skin condition." I said this with a bit of pride, remembering the blood, sweat, and tears I put into my efforts. Sarah pursed her lips in displeasure for a moment, but soon returned to her usual smile.
"Yay, right. Like you'd have money when your parents are so broke they're in debt."
Sarah's words made me bristle. Indeed, my parents had failed in business and accumulated debt at one point. And the lender was the bank where Sarah's father was the president. Her attitude worsened after that, a fact I couldn't forget even if I wanted to. However, my parents had paid off all their debts decades ago, so bringing that up now, I thought Sarah was still as mean-spirited as ever.
Well, no matter how much your appearance has changed, your introverted life remains the same, huh? Still mumbling and hunching over, I see. I thought you might have gained some confidence, but you're just like a cardboard cutout. What are you so proud of?
Sarah sneered and burst into laughter. Seeing her like that, I realized once again how much I disliked her. But I took her spiteful remarks as a sign that she might be feeling a bit bummed out. Sarah mocked me and then quickly rolled up her car window and drove off. Even though we were still standing there, she drove by without a care. What a nasty person. Maybe I should just go home. As I muttered this, watching Sarah's car, Rachel, who was glaring at Sarah, said, "Why? You've become beautiful. Don't sweat someone like her." Hearing Rachel's words, I reconsidered and headed to the venue. But I would later regret not leaving at that moment. As soon as I entered, I felt the glances of my classmates. Surely everyone thought I was Emily Thompson, walking along so familiarly with Rachel, but they must have been uncertain. When I told my name to the receptionist, who was the popular guy back then, exclaimed in surprise. That really put me in the spotlight all at once. Everyone looked at me with wide eyes and praised me. Just when I was starting to enjoy the attention, Sarah reappeared in front of me.
What's the commotion?
Like before, Sarah walked through the center of the venue with her entourage, exuding a certain intimidation in her high-brand attire. Realizing I was the center of attention, Sarah snorted disdainfully and said, "Oh, it's about her," feigning disinterest. She probably thought there was someone more noticeable than her around, maybe found it annoying. She came close to me with a creepy smile.
Look at her dress. It looks expensive at first glance, but it's actually cheap, bought from an overseas online store. She might have changed her looks, but it shows she hasn't changed inside. Still pretending, huh?
As Sarah spoke, her followers agreed. She seemed pleased with herself as she chuckled. Then, making belittling comments, she whirled in front of me, flaunting her outfit.
Look, my clothes are all high-end brands. Isn't the fluttering skirt hum so elegant? If you care about appearance, you should wear quality stuff. Otherwise, just like your clothes, you look cheap.
Then, Sarah grabbed my accessory and scoffed.
Oh, this is just gold-plated, huh? Suits your cheap outfit perfectly, doesn't it?
Feeling humiliated, I said, "Stop it," and brushed her hand away. Sarah seemed displeased and stared at me coldly.
What? You're standing up to me? Think a fatty and ugly poo girl can do that.
Stop it. I'm not overweight anymore, and I'm not poo either.
So what? Just because you look a bit different, you think you're on top of the world. Sorry to burst your bubble, but I've maintained my figure since high school and put more effort into beauty and fashion than you ever did. So, you think you can beat me just by faking it in fancy clothes now?
Sarah's words doused my good mood, and I felt like my old insecure self was awakening. It was the worst feeling. As I clenched my back teeth in frustration, Sarah looked back at me with a triumphant expression and stepped closer. Then a nasty ripping sound echoed.
Oops, sorry, I just tried to touch this decoration and it tore off. But what can you expect, right? It's cheap clothing after all.
How could you do that?
Don't get mad, please. It's your fault for wearing cheap clothes. Maybe it was already fraying.
Incredibly, Sarah had pulled and ripped off a ribbon decoration from my dress. The room buzzed, and everyone started murmuring, focusing on Sarah and me. Enjoying the attention, Sarah even reached for my necklace. "Hey, don't touch that."
I just wanted a closer look. I complimented your taste earlier, didn't I? Oh no, sorry, it tore because you resisted.
A nasty snapping sound hit my ears. At the same time, a sharp pain shot through my neck where the necklace was yanked off. I couldn't understand why this was happening to me, and tears started flowing. Seeing this, Sarah began to show her true colors even more. Instinctively feeling a bad premonition, I wanted to flee. But her entourage blocked my way. Tripped, I fell to the floor of the venue, hands first. Sitting nearby with a grin, Sarah looked down at me.
"Hey, your face is dirty, just like in high school. Let me wash it for you."
Yuck. It was like a nightmare all over again. Sarah picked up a wine glass nearby and poured it over my head. That brought back memories of that time, and I couldn't help but shiver. But then, something different happened. Rachel, who had been quietly watching us and looked scared, finally spoke up. "Stop it." I guess it took a lot of courage for her, as she had also been bullied by Sarah in high school. With Rachel's help, I managed to stand up and glance sideways at Sarah.
Introverts banding together, how amusing. But sadly, do you think plain girls like you can beat a winner like me?
We're not the same as before. Grow up already.
I am grown up. Unlike you, I'm going to be the next bank president, and I'm already engaged to the heir of a major corporation. Jealous, aren't you?
Sarah said dreamily, tilting her head and starting to talk about her fiancé.
He's the future president of a super famous advertising agency and has been modeling since elementary school. He adores me and acts all sweet when we're alone. Can life get any more perfect? I guess it's like a fairy tale for poor folks like you, huh?
Sarah was in high spirits, but her words made us stand out for all the wrong reasons, and I wanted to flee the scene. I regretted coming. After reuniting with old friends and being praised for my transformation, was I still the same inside, just as Sarah said? Clutching the tattered hem of my dress, I was overwhelmed with frustration. The tears wouldn't stop, even though I desperately wanted to hold them back. I couldn't help but wonder, why does it always have to be me? I had lost touch with Rachel because being with her often led to being targeted by Sarah, just like today, and it felt awkward. Today was supposed to be the day we could reminisce about the good old times together. Yet, Sarah ruined everything again. It was the worst. I can't take it anymore, let's go home. Feeling that way, I wiped away tears with the back of my hand and headed out of the venue with Rachel. But Sarah wasn't about to let go of her newfound amusement. The real hell started there.
Wait a minute, where do you think you're going?
Called back by Sarah, we turned around with our heads down. Then Sarah started saying,
"All you do is cry when I call you Pua. Don't you ever want to change your situation? It's really pathetic."
Although I felt the disapproving glances from the crowd, no one voiced their objection. Nobody wanted to become her next target. I realized I probably wouldn't have spoken up either if Sarah had targeted another classmate. She had been an absolute presence since high school.
Does everyone know? That's Emily over there. Her parents once borrowed money from my dad's bank. They paid it back, but you know, Emily herself borrowed money from our bank until recently.
It doesn't matter. Sarah, you don't work there. It's none of your business. Don't announce it so loudly.
If you're ashamed of borrowing money, why do it at all, especially when your parents had debts too? Doesn't that show a lack of learning?
I had no choice. I needed it. My weak retort made Sarah laugh scornfully. That's why low-level people are just sad. Fed up with her unchanging attitude, I pulled Rachel's arm, eager to end the conversation and leave. But even as we walked away, Sarah kept talking.
Poor people will always be poor, right? Would you even deposit a penny in my bank, huh?
Hearing this, I was furious and involuntarily stopped in my tracks. Why should my efforts be ridiculed to this extent? Anger began to simmer within me. If she was going to go that far, I couldn't stay silent any longer. Until now, I had hesitated to talk back or retaliate, always mindful of myself and others. But was it right to just walk away? To spend a lifetime being seen as a loser by her? I couldn't stand that thought. I had worked hard and changed my appearance, which had been a huge complex for me. That was an undeniable fact. Now was the time to make a decisive break with Sarah, to stand up for myself. With that in mind, I turned back to face Sarah. Then I took out my phone and prepared to retaliate. President Johnson, canceling a deposit of $100 million. I put the phone to my ear and said it loud and clear, making sure she heard every word. Sarah clearly heard my words, responding with a dumbfounded huh. I continued, actually. I had promised to deposit $100 million in your father's bank. That statement silenced everyone in the venue. Rachel, standing next to me, was gaping in shock. Indeed, I had been approached just the other day about depositing $100 million into the bank where Sarah's father is the president. I knew exactly why they came to me. Your father's bank was in trouble, and they asked if I could help. I wasn't interested at first, but they pleaded so desperately that I finally said I could deposit $100 million. As I casually mentioned this, Sarah murmured in astonishment, "No way." It seemed her father hadn't told his family about the bank's dire situation. Well, telling Sarah about it wouldn't change anything anyway, so it's not surprising he kept quiet about it. But I've decided to cancel that $100 million deposit. Sadly, that means your father's bank is done for. And since you'll be losing your allowance, you'll need to start working for yourself. As I said this with a smile, Sarah's face turned red and she lowered her voice. What are you talking about?
Stop lying. There's no way a poor person like you has $100 million. It's just not realistic.
It's not a lie. You saw me calling your father, right? Look, the line is still connected.
Humph, you're probably just pretending. If it's true, then let me see the phone.
Sarah snatched the phone from me and pushed me aside. But it didn't matter to me, because I was genuinely on the phone with her father. Sarah's expression tensed up as she heard her father's voice on the phone.
What? No way.
Is that you, Sarah? Why are you with Emily? Did you do something to her?
What are you talking about, Dad? As if she's some important client.
Of course, she is an important client, you fool. What have you done? I'm coming over right now. You said it's the reunion today, right? I know the venue from the notification card left on the desk. Wait for me there.
Sarah, being scolded over the phone, seemed to panic. I watched her flustered reaction and couldn't help but smirk in a way that was almost too sinister. Sarah, with a frightened look, asked, "What is going on?" Well, I'm doing illustration as a side gig, and recently a person who worked for a major gaming company approached me to collaborate on a game. I was curious why they chose me, but I kinda just took on that job.
And what about it?
Then it became a mobile app game and exploded in popularity, and the payouts to me became pretty substantial. I've taken on other jobs, too, and since I don't usually spend much, all that money just went straight into my savings. Sarah's mouth flapped open and closed like a fish. By the way, I did take a loan from your father's bank for that project, but it seems you mistook it for debt.
Loan, isn't that the same as debt?
A loan means borrowing with a solid business plan and repayment schedule. Yes, it's debt, but you get it only after passing a credit check, promising to repay it fully. Aren't you the bank president's daughter? Shouldn't you know this? As I explained, Sarah's face turned red, and she looked down, apparently not knowing any of this. She must have overheard something about my loan from her father and misunderstood it on her own. I sighed, exasperated by Sarah's ignorance. Yet, she still seemed unwilling to stop looking down on me.
Humph, I don't know about your illustrations, but I bet they're the kind of creepy, sensual ones that would come from a nerd like you. That's why they got popular. How disgusting.
Sarah said this, dramatically rubbing her arms. Her words were so outlandish, clearly a desperate insult, that I didn't even bother to retort. Taking my silence as affirmation, Sarah smirked and said, just as I thought,
just because you're making money doesn't make those kinds of illustrations any less embarrassing. I wouldn't mind taking a look, though. Send them to my phone. In fact, why not share them with everyone, huh?
Sarah tried to rattle me again, but I wasn't fazed. I didn't know what kind of illustrations she was imagining, but I wasn't ashamed of my work. If she wanted to see them, I was ready to show her. Suddenly, I noticed her phone case and exclaimed, "Oh?" Sarah, curious, raised an eyebrow and prompted me to explain. That phone case you're holding, I designed it in a limited edition collaboration with a high-end brand.
What?
I've learned since starting side work that illustration encompasses a variety of jobs. I happened to connect with someone on social media who works as a designer for that high-end brand, and they recommended me for the collaboration. Sarah looked stunned, examining her phone case closely.
Lies. I was told when I bought it that it was made by a talented designer, specially for me. You're saying you're that talented designer? Don't make me laugh.
It's true. Believe it or not, it's up to you. As I shrugged resignedly, Sarah glared at me with frustration. Just then, Sarah's father, whom I had just called, arrived. He came over, sweating and flustered.
Emily, I had to come after our conversation just a little while ago. I couldn't stay away. Please forgive my sudden visit. But why? Why would you refuse the $100 million deposit? Could you please explain the reason to me?
Dad, you really came.
Sarah, I don't need you right now. Go over there. I have important matters to discuss. This concerns the future of the Johnsons.
Sarah's father said dismissively, treating her harshly. She glared at me, grumbling about the unfair treatment.
What's so great about her? Dad's the bank president, right? He's supposed to lend money, not borrow. And now he's groveling because she refused a bank account, so what?
You don't understand. Our bank is failing because of your extravagant spending. Your actions led to this situation.
What do you mean?
Sarah rushed to her father, who was apologizing profusely as if he were about to collapse, wearing a puzzled expression on her face. He sighed in dismay at his daughter's ignorance. And then he pushed her aside and immediately dropped to his knees, starting to pour out heartfelt apologies. Sarah stood there, dumbfounded by her father's actions. He apologized for Sarah's past rudeness, and he desperately begged for the $100 million deposit reconsideration. I remained firm in my decision, shaking my head. Sarah snapped back to reality and stood between her father and me.
Stop it, Dad. It's embarrassing. You're the bank president. Act like it. I can't believe my father is acting this way. And Emily, don't get all high and mighty. You're just a nobody who happened to come into some money.
Sarah said defiantly, puffing out her chest. Then her father, with a fierce look, confronted her.
What are you talking about? Our bank earned its status through generations of community trust. You know nothing. acting all high and mighty. It's because of your meddling that I'm forced to make this deeply sincere apology.
Hearing her father's loud scolding, Sarah choked up. The president's anger was far from over.
First of all, I thought that if you had gotten along with that heir, our bank could have recovered. But you couldn't make a good impression with your haughty attitude, could you? You just rave about how handsome he is, then leave me to clean up your mess. What are you thinking?
We gasped at his words. Just before, Sarah had claimed to be engaged to the next president. Could it be a lie? I wasn't the only one shocked. The onlookers, who had been watching from a distance, suddenly turned their gaze toward Sarah all at once. Sarah caught everyone's stares and started to sweat nervously.
Stop it. Don't embarrass me. It's his fault for not seeing my worth.
It's because you lack charm. Be useful for once. You're nothing but a freeloader. At least contribute something.
My life is mine. You have no right to say that, Dad.
Say that when you can earn a living on your own.
They continued to shout insults at each other. The rest of us didn't know how to react to this spectacle. They really were like two peas in a pod. As we wondered when their argument would end, the president erupted.
Enough. Talking to you is pointless. If this deal falls through, your allowance, everything, will be gone. I'm cutting ties with you as family.
Wait, that's going too far. Are you serious?
I don't joke. Since the engagement with the heir fell through, you've been worthless to me. I've been planning to disown you ever since.
Shocked by her father's words, Sarah was frozen in place. Leaving her behind, her father, after catching his breath, gave up on the deal and left. Sarah, left alone, stood petrified in the eerily silent venue. I turned to Rachel, who was beside me in disbelief, and said, "Let's go home. I've got no business here anymore, and I can't be bothered with this charade any longer." Rachel also started walking slowly, with me leading the way. At that moment, Sarah, who had been immobile, she suddenly sprang into action and lunged at me as I turned my back to her. Caught off guard, I was nearly overpowered when someone restrained her. It was my boyfriend, Kyle McLachlan. Initially, Sarah struggled against Kyle's hold, but when she saw his face, she gasped. Then her cheeks flushed as she exclaimed,
Kyle, what are you doing here? Did you come to see me? Have you reconsidered our marriage?
I blurted out in astonishment, "What?" Then Sarah turned to me, smiling triumphantly.
He's the fiancé I was talking about. Someone out of your league, like a prince out of a fairy tale.
Confused by her claim, I was about to ask what was going on when Kyle shook his head in exasperation.
Emily, don't believe her. There was talk of an engagement, but I couldn't stand her on a gut level, so I called it off. We have nothing to do with each other now, but she's been going around spreading rumors that she's my girlfriend.
Kyle, wait, you mean that persistent girl you were talking about?
Right, Sarah's the one I was talking about. But I'm marrying Emily soon, and her nuisance behavior needs to stop, so I'm consulting with a lawyer. I never expected to run into Emily here, though.
Sarah's jaw dropped wide open as she watched me chatting with Kyle. Then, after comparing me and Kyle several times, she asked in confusion,
What do you mean? You dumped me for her. Didn't you just say that?
Kyle bluntly replied, "Yes, I did." At that, Sarah started yelling hysterically.
What? Impossible. Why would Kyle be with such a plain girl? How did you even meet? Are you blackmailing him, Emily? There's no way Kyle would marry Emily. Absolutely impossible.
That's rude. I haven't blackmailed anyone. We just met at a painting class and hit it off. I had no idea there was talk of an engagement with Sarah.
Of course, he's the future president of a famous ad agency and a model. Only someone like me is worthy of him, not the trash like you. You're tricking Kyle.
Sarah charged at me, pushed him aside, and came closer to me. I stood firm, meeting her with a resolute glare.
You're being deceived by her, Kyle. She back in high school had a face full of acne, was fat, and was just plain ugly, like some kind of ogre. It's not too late to change your mind. Marrying me would make you much happier.
Sarah tried to charm Kyle, shoving me aside. Though annoyed and jealous, I trusted Kyle not to be fooled by her, waiting for his response.
I came here for Emily. Honestly, I don't want anything to do with someone who spreads lies about being in a relationship with me.
Stunned by his firm rejection, Sarah froze, seemingly unable to believe she was being turned down.
Why, I'm so beautiful, definitely better suited to be by Kyle's side. You should think harder. Choosing her now, you'll surely regret it. Even compatibility horoscopes show that she and Kyle are a mismatch.
That's exactly why I can't stand you.
Sarah, clinging to Kyle, was refused adamantly, and she ended up sitting weakly on the ground. In the venue, all eyes were on Sarah with judgment. Eventually realizing the attention, she blushed and hurried out of the venue. Later, Sarah was kicked out of her home. On top of that, she's living a lavish lifestyle despite being broke and drowning in debt. Unable to forget Kyle, she even caused trouble at his workplace, ending up arrested and spending time behind bars. Hearing this, I felt like I finally got revenge for high school. Moreover, since that day, my luck turned, and I achieved even greater success as an illustrator. Things really kicked off when I got approached for deals even from overseas animated movies. This made me even more of a celebrity. Thanks to this, I was able to leave my job as an office worker and make a living happily as an illustrator, married to the man I love. Rachel and I also rekindled our friendship from high school. It's been a journey with its ups and downs, but ultimately, I'm living a wonderful life now, and I intend to cherish it.